My husband had me arrested at my mother's memorial dinner. The handcuffs clicked around my wrists, just as he lifted a glass to my younger sister and called her the future of our family business. I remember every sound from that moment. The soft music stopping. A fork hitting a plate. My sister Natalie whispering my name as if she were the one being hurt. And my husband Evan saying, very quietly, "Claire, please don't make this worse." That sentence told me everything. He knew the police were coming. The dinner was being held in the ballroom of Hawthorne House, the lakeside inn my mother had owned for 38 years. It stood on the Ohio shore of Lake Erie. 3 stories of gray stone, white balconies, and windows that caught the sunset like fire. My mother, Evelyn Bennett, had started with 6 guest rooms and 1 borrowed stove. By the time she died, Hawthorne House had 42 rooms, a restaurant, a wedding garden, and enough local history that tourists took pictures beside the front sign. I had worked there since I was 14. Natalie had worked there when she needed money. There was a difference. My mother had been dead for 23 days. The official cause was a stroke after a fall in her bedroom. She was 72, tired but sharp, and still capable of finding a crooked picture frame from across a crowded room. I had not accepted that she was gone. I had only learned how to keep moving while grief walked beside me. That evening, every table held white roses and small candles. Table 12 was reserved for family. My place card sat between Evan and Natalie. I never reached my seat. 2 detectives entered through the ballroom doors before the first course. One was a woman named Detective Sloan. The other was a uniformed officer I knew from town. Detective Sloan asked me to step into the hallway. Evan stood immediately. "What is this about?" I asked. He touched my elbow. "Just cooperate." I looked at him. His face was arranged into concern, but his eyes were calm. Too calm. Detective Sloan told me I was under arrest on suspicion of felony theft, wire fraud, forgery, and falsifying business records. I laughed because the words made no sense. Then she said the amount. $612,000. The money had supposedly disappeared from Hawthorne House over 11 months. Transfers had been approved through my administrator account. Vendor contracts carried my electronic signature. A shell company had received the funds. The shell company had been registered in my name. I looked toward the ballroom. Natalie stood in the doorway with one hand over her mouth. Around her neck were my mother's pearls. I had been searching for those pearls since the funeral. Evan stepped closer and lowered his voice. I tried to stop this from becoming public. "You knew. The accountant found the transfers last week." "Which accountant?" "Henry. Henry Pike had handled the inn's books for 12 years. He had attended my wedding. He had eaten Thanksgiving dinner in my mother's kitchen." I turned to Natalie. She began crying before I spoke. "Claire, I didn't want tonight to happen like this." "Then why are you wearing Mom's necklace?" Her hand dropped from her mouth to the pearls. For 1 second, her tears stopped. That was the first crack. The police walked me through the lobby while guests moved aside. Some avoided my eyes. Others stared as if Betrayal were a show included with dinner. Outside, cold wind came off the lake. A local reporter was already standing near the parking lot. Already. Before the officer placed me in the car, I looked back through the glass doors. Evan had his arm around Natalie. Not around her shoulders like a brother, in-law comforting family. Around her waist. It lasted only a second. Then he saw me watching and moved his hand. I spent the night in county jail. At first, I expected Evan to arrive with our lawyer. He did not. I called him 3 times. The first call went to voicemail. The second was rejected. On the third, he answered. "Evan, get me out of here." There was a long pause. "I can't be involved. Claire. You are my husband. And the inn's legal counsel advised everyone to create distance. Since when do you listen to the inn's lawyer before speaking to your wife? Since the police showed me bank records. I gripped the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. You know I didn't steal that money. I know you've been under pressure. That was another sentence prepared in advance. Pressure, grief, exhaustion. Words that could be placed around a woman until they looked like bars. Did you call the reporter? I asked. He hung up at 2 a.m. I sat on a narrow bunk under a buzzing light and replayed the last month. My mother's fall. Natalie insisting we use Henry to review the estate. Even taking my laptop to update the security system. The missing pearls. The way they stood together in the ballroom. By sunrise, grief had changed into something colder. Not rage. Rage burns too fast. This was focus. At 9, Rosa Alvarez posted my bail. Rosa had managed housekeeping at Hawthorne House for 26 years. She was 65 feet tall and feared by every lazy employee who had ever tried to hide a dirty towel under a bed. She waited outside the jail in her red pickup truck with coffee, a clean coat, and no questions. When I climbed inside, she handed me the cup. Your husband changed the locks at your house, she said. I stared at her. He says you are not allowed on inn property either. Natalie told the staff she is acting general manager. My mother has been dead 3 weeks. I know. And they already replaced me. Rosa looked straight ahead. People who move that fast started before the funeral. She drove me to her small house on the edge of town. On the kitchen table was a cardboard box of my belongings. Even had packed them. 3 sweaters, 2 pairs of jeans, toiletries, my passport, a framed wedding picture placed face down. On top lay my mother's navy winter coat. I took that from the staff closet before Natalie started changing codes. Rosa said, Your mother wore it the week she died. I lifted the coat. Something tapped against the floor. A brass key had been sewn inside the lining. Attached to it was a paper tag with 3 words in my mother's handwriting. Let TTM widen. Tum weamautiars last ianstar uctiam. My mother had never told me to surrender in my life. So when I read LETM win, I knew it did not mean give up. It meant perform. The key belonged to a bank safe, deposit box in Toledo. Rosa recognized the bank logo on the tag. We drove there before noon. But the clerk would not let me open the box without identification and proof that I was authorized. Inside the safe deposit box were 4 things. A sealed letter addressed to me, a flash drive, a small black ledger, and a photograph of Evan kissing Natalie behind the inn's boathouse. The photograph had a date printed in the corner. 3 months before my mother died. I sat in the bank's private viewing room and stared until the faces stopped looking familiar. Avon had one hand against Natalie's cheek. She wore the red coat I gave her for Christmas. The boathouse door stood open behind them. My husband and my sister. The 2 people who had held me upright at my mother's funeral. Rosa sat beside me without touching anything. Open the letter, she said. My mother's handwriting was steady at the beginning and shaky near the end. Claire, if you are reading this, I was right to be afraid. Do not confront Evan or Natalie. They have been moving money through Northline Restoration, and they are preparing records that make it appear you approved every transfer. Henry knows more than he admits. They believe I am confused because Natalie has told everyone I forget things. I do not forget. I document. The inn is protected, but they do not know how. You must let them believe they control it until they try to sell. Trust Rosa. Find Malcolm Reed. Do not use your phone. Do not return home alone. I am sorry I did not tell you sooner. I wanted proof strong enough that love could not explain it away. At the bottom, She had added one final line. A liar is most honest when he believes the truth has already lost. I read the letter twice. Then I cried. Not softly. I folded over the table with my mother's words in my hands and made the kind of sound grief makes when it discovers betrayal living inside it. Rosa closed the door and stood guard outside. When I could breathe again, I opened the black ledger. It contained dates, invoice numbers, and initials. E for Evan. N for Natalie. H for Henry. Northline Restoration had billed the inn for roof repairs, foundation work, electrical upgrades, and lakefront erosion control. None of that work had happened. My mother had written the real cost beside each fake invoice. 0. At the back of the ledger was a list of meetings between Evan and a company called Mercer Lake Development. I knew the name. Mercer bought historic properties, closed them for renovation, then reopened them as private luxury resorts, where local people could not afford a cup of coffee. The final entry was dated 2 days before my mother's fall. Iflin wants sale before September. They need C removed. C was me. The flash drive contained scans of bank statements, copies of emails, and a short video recorded in my mother's office. At first, the room appeared empty. Then Evan entered with Henry Pike. The camera angle came from a shelf near the ceiling. My mother must have hidden a small security camera among the old books. Evan closed the office door. Henry said, "The transfer trail is good, but if Claire fights it, we have a problem." Evan answered, "She won't fight. Her mother will be dead. Her sister will say she's unstable, and I'll be the husband who tried to save her." My skin went cold. Henry asked about the property documents. Evan smiled. "Natalie has the power of attorney. Evelyn signs when she's tired." The video ended there. It was powerful. But not enough. They could claim the audio was misunderstood. They could say the records were incomplete. They could blame my mother's memory. And the police already had documents carrying my name. We needed Malcolm Reed. Malcolm had been my mother's attorney until 6 months earlier, when Natalie convinced her to use a larger estate firm in Cleveland. He lived outside town, in a farmhouse surrounded by bare fields and wind-bent trees. He opened the door, saw me, and said, "Your mother told you to come." Not asked, told. Inside, I showed him everything. He listened without interruption. When the video ended, he removed his glasses. "Your mother came to me in April," he said. "She believed Evan and Natalie were trying to force a sale. She also believed someone was accessing her email." "Why didn't you call me?" "Because she was afraid your phone and laptop were compromised. She wanted to protect you until she could separate the inn from the trap." "What does that mean?" Malcolm looked at Rosa, then back at me. 6 weeks before she died, your mother transferred the land beneath Hawthorne House into an employee preservation trust. I stared at him. She gave away the inn. Not the business. The land. The trust is controlled by 3 people. Your mother, me, and a representative elected by the employees. Upon her death, her seat passes to you. So Evan and Natalie cannot sell. Not legally. For the first time since my arrest, I felt hope. Then Malcolm continued. "But they can still destroy you. If the criminal case stands, they can argue you are unfit to serve as trustee. They can pressure the employees, bankrupt the operating company, and try to force the trust into court." Hope narrowed into a blade. What do we do? Exactly what Evelyn wrote. We let them believe they won. That afternoon, Malcolm contacted a state financial crimes investigator he trusted. I gave a formal statement without using my own phone. Rosa bought me a prepaid device with cash. Then I called Evan. He answered on the first ring. "Claire." My voice shook, but I let it. "I can't do this." There was silence. "What are you saying?" I'll resign from Hawthorne House. I'll sign whatever you need. Just help me make the charges go away. His breathing changed. Not relief. Excitement. Come home, he said gently. We can fix this as a family. I closed my eyes. For 16 years, that voice had meant safety. Now I heard the machinery behind it. I need time. Of course. And even. Wes, I'm sorry. He exhaled slowly. I know. After the call, Rosa looked at me. You sounded broken. I am broken. Malcolm shook his head. No. Broken things do not set traps. That night, in Rosa's spare bedroom, I found a listening device inside my mother's coat button. Someone had not only searched her room. Someone had been listening to her until the day she died. Par T3. T-mom T-wall allowed. Confusity. The listening device changed the case. It was small, professionally made, and linked to a subscription account registered through Northline Restoration. The state investigator, Agent Lena Brooks, told me not to touch it again. She sent it to a lab. 3 days later, the lab found partial audio stored in the device's memory. Most of it was ordinary. My mother talking to Rose about laundry orders. My mother arguing with a produce supplier. My mother singing badly while she searched for a file. Then came a recording from the night before her fall. Natalie entered the room. Her voice was clear. You need to sign the authorization. My mother answered. I already told you no. You don't understand what's happening. I understand my younger daughter is sleeping with my older daughter's husband. The silence after that lasted 6 seconds. Then Natalie said, You have no proof. I have enough. You are sick. No, Natalie. I am disappointed. Those are not the same condition. A chair scraped across the floor. Natalie's voice hardened. If you tell Claire, you lose me. My mother answered with words that cut through me. I already lost the daughter I raised. I am speaking to the woman who replaced her. The recording ended with a door slamming. Agent Brooks replayed it once. Was your mother taking any medication that affected memory? She asked. Blood pressure medicine. A mild sleep aid when needed. Nothing else. Her medical file shows repeated reports of confusion submitted by your sister. Natalie handled her appointments. Prepared her pills. I felt the answer before I said it. The investigation widened. My mother's blood sample from the hospital had been stored because her death occurred less than 4 hours after admission. A toxicology review found a sedative that had not been prescribed to her. When Agent Brooks explained that, I sat in Malcolm's office and stared at the rain running down the window. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked, Can you prove Natalie gave it to her? Not yet. That became the most painful phrase in my life. Not yet. We knew about the affair. We knew about the fake invoices. We knew about the forged records. We knew someone had drugged my mother. But knowing is not proving. And revenge without proof is only another story people can choose not to believe. So I went back to Hawthorne House. Avon arranged the meeting in my mother's old office. He sat behind her desk as if he had been born there. Natalie stood by the window wearing a cream suit, and the pearls again. Henry Pike sat near the fireplace with a folder on his knees. I wore simple clothes and no makeup. I let my shoulders fall. I kept my eyes red. They wanted a defeated woman. I gave them one. Even came around the desk and hugged me. I forced myself not to move away. We're going to help you, he said. Natalie looked down. We all make mistakes. I almost laughed. Instead, I whispered, I don't remember approving those transfers. Henry opened the folder. Stress can affect memory. There it was again. The family weapon. Confusion. Instability. A woman's pain translated into permission. Even showed me a resignation letter. a confession to financial misconduct, and an agreement transferring my shares in the operating company to Natalie for $1. My entire adult life priced lower than a cup of coffee. I read slowly. This says I acted alone. It protects the employees, Natalie said. How? If the business can separate itself from your actions, Mercer will still complete the purchase. So you are selling. Ivan and Natalie exchanged a glance. Ivan smiled carefully. It is the only way to save Hawthorne House. I picked up the pen. When is the sale? Friday? Henry said too quickly. Natalie shot him a look. I placed the pen down. I want one thing. Ivan leaned forward. What? A private settlement. Enough money for me to leave Ohio and start over. Natalie's face tightened. You stole more than $500,000. I'm being asked to confess to stealing it. That has value. For the first time, I let them see a small piece of the real me. Ivan noticed. His eyes narrowed. How much? 200,000. Natalie laughed. I stood. Then explain the land trust to Mercer without my signature. The room froze. I had not planned to reveal that. Malcolm had told me not to. But traps sometimes need bait that smells real. Ivan recovered first. What land trust? I looked at Natalie. Mom protected the property. Her face went white. Henry stood so fast the folder fell from his lap. That is impossible. I turned to him. You should ask Malcolm Reed. Ivan stepped between me and the door. Sit down. No. His voice lost its softness. Sit down. In 16 years of marriage, I had seen him angry. I had never seen his mask disappear completely. That day, it did. You think you can walk in here and threaten us, he said. Use. The word hung in the room. Natalie looked at him sharply. He realized too late. I smiled for the first time. Thank you. Then I walked around him and left. In the hallway. My knees nearly failed. Rosa waited near the service elevator. I entered, pressed the button, and opened my blouse just enough to remove the wire taped beneath it. Agent Brooks had everything. Not a full confession, but enough panic to make them move. That evening, Henry Pike called me from a gas station outside Cleveland. He was crying. They are going to blame me, he said. You helped them blame me. I did what Evan told me. You falsified records, he said. Nobody would be hurt. My mother is dead. Henry stopped crying. The silence changed. What do you know about that? I asked. I never touched her medication. I did not ask whether you touched it. He began breathing too quickly. Then he said, Natalie bought something from a pharmacy in Canada. Ivan told me it was for sleep. Do you have proof? I have emails. Why? Because I knew one day they would need someone to bury. He gave the emails to Agent Brooks that night. They showed Natalie ordering prescription sedatives under a false name. Another email from Evan Reed. Keep Evelyn calm until she signs. No scenes. No hospital. But the most important message came from Henry himself. After my mother's fall, he had written to Evan. This was not the plan. Evan replied, plans change. Finish Claire's file. Agent Brooks obtained warrants the next morning. She could have arrested them then. Instead, she asked whether I could survive one more day. The Mercer sale was scheduled for Friday night in the Hawthorne ballroom. Ivan and Natalie would be surrounded by contracts, investors, witnesses, and every record they believed gave them control. My mother's instruction returned to me. Let them win. So we did. We let them reach the finish line. Then we removed the ground beneath it. Per 4. T. Cell. T. Ni Ar Hepinand. Friday arrived bright and cold. Hawthorne House looked beautiful from the road. Flags moved above the entrance. Staff carried flowers into the ballroom. Mercer Lake Development had sent black cars, expensive lawyers, and a photographer to capture what they called a historic transition. At 6 that evening, I entered through the front doors, wearing my mother's navy coat. The repaired lining had no key now. The listening device was gone, but the coat still smelled faintly of her cedar closet, and I needed that strength around me. People turned as I crossed the lobby. Some whispered. One woman I had known for 20 years looked away. Rosa did not. She stood beside the reception desk in her black manager's dress, chin lifted. Behind her were cooks, housekeepers, servers, gardeners, and desk clerks. Every employee had been invited to witness the signing. That was Malcolm's condition as trustee. Avon waited near the ballroom doors. "You came," he said. "You said this ends tonight." "It can. Do you have my settlement?" His jaw moved. "After you sign." Natalie approached wearing my mother's pearls for the third time. That detail mattered to me more than it should have. "Take them off," I said. She touched the necklace. "They were left to me." "No. You took them from Mom's room before the funeral. This is not the place. It is exactly the place." Ivan stepped closer. "Claire, remember why you are here." I looked through the open ballroom doors. Table 12 stood near the front. The same table from the memorial dinner. The same chair where my place card had waited while police took me away. Tonight, a folder lay on that chair. My confession, my resignation, my erasure, arranged neatly under gold light. "I remember," I said. The signing began at 7. Mercer's president gave a speech about honoring history while building the future. Ivan thanked the community. Natalie spoke about our mother's dream and had the courage to cry while saying her name. Then Malcolm walked to the microphone. He was introduced as counsel for the Preservation Trust. Evan smiled as if Malcolm were a technical problem already solved. Malcolm said, "Before any transfer can proceed, the trust requires confirmation from all successor trustees." He called me forward. I crossed the ballroom alone. The room felt different from the night of my arrest. Then, I had been confused and surrounded. Now, every exit had an agent near it. Every important conversation was being recorded. Every document on the stage had been copied. Avon handed me the confession. "Sign," he whispered. I took the pen. Then I looked at the audience. My mother once told me a liar is most honest when he believes the truth has already lost. Natalie's face changed. Avon reached for my arm. I stepped back. The ballroom lights dimmed. A screen lowered behind the stage. The hidden video from my mother's office began to play. Henry's voice filled the room. "The transfer trail is good, but if Claire fights it, we have a problem." Then Evan answered. "She won't fight. Her mother will be dead. Her sister will say she's unstable, and I'll be the husband who tried to save her." The room erupted in whispers. Evan turned toward the sound booth. "Shut that off!" No one moved. The next recording played. Natalie's voice in my mother's bedroom. "You need to sign the authorization." Then my mother. "I understand my younger daughter is sleeping with my older daughter's husband." Natalie backed away from the stage. 2 agents moved closer to the exit. Mercer's lawyers began closing their folders. I faced my sister. Mom knew. Natalie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Evan grabbed the microphone. "These recordings are manipulated. Claire is facing criminal charges. She is trying to sabotage a lawful sale." I looked at Agent Brooks. She nodded. The screen changed to the bank trail. Northline Restoration. Fake invoices. Transfers into accounts controlled by Ivan, Natalie, and Henry. Then the shell company registered in my name. The registration had been submitted from Evan's office computer while I was attending a hospitality conference in Chicago. Next came the medication emails. "Keep Evelyn calm until she signs. No scenes, no hospital." A sound moved through the ballroom. Not shock exactly, recognition. The moment people realized the polished story they had been given was built over something rotten. Natalie pointed at me. She always hated me. I almost felt sorry for her. Even then, with the truth surrounding her, she reached for the oldest lie. "This is jealousy," she said. "Claire controlled everything. Mom gave her the business. Even lived in her shadow." I was invisible. I took the microphone from Evan's hand. "Feeling invisible did not force you to drug our mother." Natalie's face collapsed. I did not mean for her to fall. The words left her before she could stop them. The room became completely silent. Evan turned on her. "Be quiet." She looked at him. "You said it was safe." I said, "Be quiet." "You told me she would just sleep." Agent Brooks stepped onto the stage. "Natalie Bennett, do not say another word." But panic had opened the door, and guilt kept running. "You said once she signed, we would leave." Natalie told Evan. "You said Claire would take the blame, and nobody would care about an old woman falling." Evan moved toward her. 2 agents stopped him. He looked around the ballroom, searching for the version of himself everyone used to believe. The loyal husband. The responsible attorney. The man protecting a family business from a troubled wife. That man no longer existed because the audience had heard the machinery behind him. Agent Brooks arrested Ivan for conspiracy, fraud, forgery, financial exploitation, evidence tampering, and charges related to my mother's injury. Natalie was arrested beside him. Henry Pike had already surrendered that afternoon under a cooperation agreement. Mercer's president left through a side door without finishing his speech. The sale documents remained unsigned. Then Malcolm returned to the microphone. "There is one more matter," he said. The screen displayed the Employee Preservation Trust. He explained that Hawthorne House could not be sold without approval from me, him, and the employee trustee. Rosa stepped forward. The staff had elected her that morning. She looked at the unsigned sale agreement. Then she said, "No, one word. 70, 3 jobs protected. 30, 8 years of my mother's work protected. The lakefront protected." People began to applaud. At first, it was scattered, then louder. I did not feel victorious. I felt my mother's absence like an open door in winter. She should have been there. She should have heard the truth spoken publicly. She should have watched the people who called her confused discover she had been the smartest person in the room. After the agents took Ivan and Natalie away, I walked to table 12. My old place card from the memorial had been placed beside the confession folder. Rosa had saved it. "Cla Bennett." I sat in the chair they had kept empty for the police. Then I tore the confession in half. "Tit kilums ed Ellie." The charges against me were dismissed 11 days later. Even pleaded not guilty at first. He claimed Henry created the fraud and Natalie acted alone with the medication. Then Henry provided emails, recordings, backup drives, and a private ledger showing Ivan had planned the scheme for nearly 2 years. Natalie accepted a plea agreement after toxicology experts connected the sedative to the pills she had prepared for our mother. She admitted she wanted Mom tired and compliant. She insisted she never intended the fall. The court found that intention did not erase consequence. She received 9 years. Henry received 4 years in restitution credit for cooperation. Evan went to trial. The jury convicted him on every major financial count and on conspiracy related to the drugging and exploitation of my mother. He received 26 years. At sentencing, he asked to speak. He turned toward me with the same face he used the night I called from jail. "Claire, I loved you," he said. I waited. He continued. "I made terrible choices because I felt trapped in a life where there was no room for me. Hawthorne House was always your mother, then you. I was never first. The judge watched me, perhaps expecting tears. I felt nothing dramatic, only clarity. You were first many times, I said. You just wanted to be the only person who mattered. He looked down. That was the last time I saw my husband outside prison glass. Natalie wrote to me 6 months after sentencing. Her letter was 8 pages long. She wrote about being the younger sister, about feeling less capable, about Mom trusting me with decisions. She wrote that Evan made her feel seen. Near the end, she finally wrote about our mother. I thought I had more time to fix it. I read that sentence many times. Then I wrote back. You did have time. You used it to continue. I did not tell her I hated her. I did not tell her I forgave her. Forgiveness is not a key someone can demand because prison doors are locked. I told her I hoped she became honest enough to live with what she had done. Then I closed that door. Hawthorne House reopened fully the following spring. So I changed the structure. I transferred 40% of the operating company into an employee ownership plan. I created scholarships for workers' children and a paid training program for adults rebuilding after financial abuse. We named the program Evelyn's Table. Table 12 stood near the front. I placed my mother's pearls in a small glass box at the center. The police had returned them after Natalie's conviction. I did not want to wear them. For too long, they had looked like proof of theft and betrayal. So I added a small card. Evian Beneveli Asia's house, so otherpopld feel welcome. The pearls became part of the inn's history, not one daughter's possession. After dinner, Rosa found me alone near the lake. The sunset covered the water in orange light. For a moment, the windows of Hawthorne House burned the way they had when I was a child. You did it, she said. We did it. Your mother would be proud. I looked toward the third floor balcony outside her old room. I wish she had told me. She was protecting you. She protected me by facing them alone. Rosa was quiet. That was the truth I struggled with most. My mother had been brave, but brave people can still make painful choices. She had taught me to ask for help, then hidden her own danger because she believed she needed perfect proof. For a long time, I was angry with her. Love and anger can live in the same room. So can grief and gratitude. A year after the trial, Malcolm gave me one final envelope from his files. My mother had asked him to deliver it only after the criminal case ended. Inside was a short note. Claire, you may be angry that I kept this from you. Be angry. It means you survived long enough to argue with me. I was not trying to be a hero. I was trying to be certain. That was my mistake. Do not honor me by becoming suspicious of everyone. Honor me by trusting the people who earn it. Build a place where truth does not need perfect evidence before someone is allowed to feel afraid. Love, Mom, I read the note at table 12 before opening time. Then I cried the way I had in the bank, but this grief was different. It did not feel like falling through a floor. It felt like setting down a weight. 5 years after my arrest, I attended the annual memorial dinner again. We no longer called it my mother's memorial. We called it Founders' Night, and we honored every employee who had worked at Hawthorne House for more than 20 years. The ballroom was full. Rosa sat at table 12, wearing a silver dress. Malcolm sat beside her. Former trainees filled the rest of the table. A new place card waited for me between them. CII or Bennett. No police entered. No reporter waited outside. No one asked me to step away from my seat. Before dinner, I stood at the microphone and looked at the people who had carried the inn when my family tried to sell it, steal it, and bury me beneath it. I told them the truth about revenge. Revenge was not Evan growing old in prison. It was not Natalie losing the pearls she stole. It was not seeing my name cleared in the newspaper that once printed my arrest photograph. Those things were consequences. Real revenge was waking up without needing their apology. It was turning a confession folder into scholarship applications. It was making the place they tried to sell belong to more people, not fewer. It was refusing to let betrayal teach me that love was foolish. After my speech, I carried my chair away from table 12. People watched as I placed it at the end of the room, beside a new table made from reclaimed wood from the old boathouse. The table was long enough for 24 people. The first seats went to that year's graduating class from Evelyn's table. Rosa laughed when she understood. Malcolm shook his head and smiled. Outside, the lake was dark, but the windows of Hawthorne House reflected across the water in a long path of gold. My husband and sister had believed they could remove me by controlling the documents, the money, and the story. For a while, they did. They took my home. They took my name. They took my seat at my own mother's table. But they made one mistake. They thought being pushed away from the table meant I had nowhere left to belong. They tried to erase my place at the table. I built a longer table, and this time, I chose every seat,